Okay, right, we're going to rates and fees, and we have Andrew and Aaron, and I'm going to ask Parul and another Aaron, Andrew, to come up as well, just in case there are queries about that. We may as well just have everyone at the table. Aaron, are you coming up or no? Yep, please. Andrew, the same feedback to you is really to highlight the points rather than go through the whole report. So we've got this, but just go to the crux of the matter would be appreciated. Thank you.
Certainly. So this report's proposing a number of minor changes to rating policy and some fees and charges to implement or follow on from some financial decisions or general policy decisions that you've already made. Got a couple of changes in the waste management space, follow through associated with water quality targeted rate, septic tank area, some fee increases, change to the urban rating area. Colleagues are here with us today and we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, it was briefer and to the point than I thought it would be. So, Councillor Simpson.
And mine will be brief too, hopefully. I just want to know, when you ask somebody what they think, when you consult on whether we should increase the base waste management targeted rate, you give people a choice, yes or no. Can you just confirm that you would give people the option to either increase it or have a rates increase, or will you just say, do you agree? What's the negative?
We haven't proposed a specific question to be included. They are the choices though, and that's reflected in the material that we've produced here and will be in the materials that as part of the consultation.
The point I'm making is I think that we're consulting on a change and we should tell people what happens if it's a no.
Yep, certainly.
Okay.
Sorry, I was looking somewhere else. So, now, Councillor Cooper.
So I just wanted to, I have had a bit of clarification around the earlier question I asked out at the wrong time around the increase to the refuse levy. Can I just have a bit of an explanation about the fact that Waitakere and North Shore communities are being more efficient with their refuse disposal, but the rate is going up? If you could just outline that for me.
So through the chair, basically what's happening in the Waitakere and North Shore areas is that the community is being more efficient with their use of services. And obviously what we're seeing is, as a consequence to that, is that whilst the costs of the services are being covered, we're still providing a weekly service. So what's happening is the participation rate is lower, but we're still travelling the same area. So therefore the costs of the service from a collection point of view haven't decreased.
But the revenue from the bin tag
the revenue from the bin tag is down.
So we need to make sure can still provide that service that people are paying
That's
for with
correct,
the tag.
yes.
So it is subsidised?
Yes.
Right, so that's an interesting message to put out to people. I
Well,
think they're paying this much, but there is a subsidy towards it in some way, as a general, across the region.
So what we've got to be careful is when we use the word subsidising, what it's doing is actually the region is paying, the services are being recovered from the bin tag costs, right, but there's a fixed cost element that actually is being moved into the base rate charge. That's a fixed cost that would be normally recovered from the actual bin tag price.
Yes, so instead of increasing the bin tag, we're going to spread the load.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Can I just ask the questions I've got around the whole report? Oh, I will. No one's listening. Okay, so in terms of the septic tank pump out service that we're looking to consult on, I note that the local board have offered another option which we hadn't discussed before. Could somebody talk to me about that? Because unfortunately the local board has been doing its own consultation without any backup information, and that's what I'm concerned about, that we make sure we get really good information out there, science, because it's already been a bit skewed before
Yes.
we even got a chance to properly consult on it.
So when we talked to the local board about this issue, the current scheme, the pump out scheme, is quite a high level inspection scheme, and there was some concern that it didn't go far enough, so some areas were missed, or and so the local board was concerned that the pump out scheme actually wasn't doing as well as the jobs it could do in terms of compliance, and so that's why they raised that, is that they wished to have an enhanced pump out scheme on that.
Sorry, so that's not what I understand. It, a lot of them don't want it to stop.
They don't want it to stop, and then they don't want it to stop, and also they want it enhanced in terms of making sure that it's a better system.
Okay, so I guess and it probably is better to speak earlier, but around the consultation needs to be really clear, and to make sure we're not operating on myths, that we're operating a consultation on the real science. And I know you do, but it can get a bit skewed when it's been gone out there already on the back of the on-site wastewater bylaw consultation, which it's got mixed up with, so.
Yeah, I was just reminded that the consultation is going to be specifically to the area.
Yes.
So, yeah, so
Yes,
they'll
and
be
it's
aware of
been-
it, yeah.
Thank you. So, and I'd really appreciate if Councillor Hulse and I could be involved in that, because it often goes to the local board, but we know that it's, I think it is, this is our annual plan, we'll make the decision in the end, we'd like to be involved. And the other one I want to ask about is the, which I probably heard about in the Herald before I read it in the report, around the extra fees for berthage in number 47, which I heard about Chris Dixon, former America's Cup skipper, talking about. Can we just, these things often get hidden in here, and you just go, yeah, but I'd really like to hear the rationale, and also from anybody else around, is it going to affect, we're spending a lot of money on America's Cup on the one hand, do we then undermine those opportunities? It's, yeah.
Yeah, at the moment we get a number of vessels, private super yachts, cruise ships and cargo vessels anchoring around the region, and they're not contributing anything towards the running of the Harbour Masters department, but we spend quite a bit of effort and our time dealing with these vessels. So the proposal is to introduce this fee, which is in line with other regions in New Zealand.
Okay, so you're saying that at the moment they just drop anchor and that's it, they don't pay anything?
Correct.
Okay, so this, all right, thank you.
So as a follow-up on that, who tries to chase the stink bugs or whatever they're called?
Marmaladed.
I mean, yeah, someone bought some shoes in Dunedin and had 20 stink bugs in them.
So that's
Online or something.
that's MPI that deal with that.
Yeah, that's nice.
So we
Harbour Master.
yeah, Harbour Master doesn't have to. Further questions?
Oh, yeah.
Councillor Darby.
Thank you. Just on the parole, question for parole. Just on the change for Northcote, Milford and Takapuna, what's anticipated there is that we maintain that service, we charge for it, and I do agree, and I am also grateful for you changing the direction on this, where there was a risk of actually pulling it entirely, parole, so I acknowledge your team's work there, because there is a huge commitment. It would have cost a lot more to reinstate it. And I think it is reasonably fair to apply that charge. But I guess my question is, we are heading towards an all of Auckland service, correct?
That's right.
So in terms of these people that are affected, that are within a so-called trial, would it be more reasonable to discontinue the use of the word trial for that area? Because effectively it is permanent, leading to a region-wide rollout.
Yep.
First question.
I agree.
Could we just take out the word trial then, Mr. Chair? Would that would that be more appropriate? Because then that sends a signal that they're paying for something that will always be there.
Yep.
We could amend the resolution accordingly.
The motion under A2,
Food scrap
Chair.
service.
just to delete the word.
Food scrap service.
Wait a minute, and so that question
Well,
was...
just maybe before you come back to me on another question, maybe just examine that one. I know Councillor Hill's got a query on that.
Yeah, I think the trial area makes it clear on exactly where the charge is, that maybe it could say, which will now be seen as a service or something, because the trial area is related to the boundary of, as opposed to, or you could say the old trial area or
Or
something.
on the former trial area.
Yeah,
Yep.
something like that,
Yeah.
because it will no longer be a trial, but it will confuse,
Service.
it will confuse people who are not. If you just take out trial, then the whole of Milford thinks they've suddenly got a service which they're not going to get.
No, I agree. I think it can be clarified in terms of that's a service, ongoing service, but for the area that had the trial for the last 4 years. So we can do
Right.
that.
Okay, what would you like in the former trial area? I think Chris said, sorry, Councillor Davis said on, but I
In the
think it would be
previous.
in, wouldn't it?
In the previous,
In the
previous trial area.
In the,
Yep,
The former trial area.
That's fine.
okay, putting that in.
Second question, thank you. On the harbour master charges, and I acknowledge the harbour master's office are working those out. Andrew, thank you. I understand that this does not impact the mega yachts. So the 40-metre pluses are mega yachts. They're not super yachts. They're mega yachts. They're small ships. They include the Ovation of the Seas that is GPS moored in the middle of the Waitemata as of last week, which doesn't pay a berthage because it's not berthing, but it also covers the offloading of cargo ships where they offload explosives in the Motohi zone. It covers ships that are berthed, cruise ships, small niche market cruise ships off Matiatia, where your office is paying for services but not recovering. But it does not, as media covered, it does not cover a mega ship, a mega yacht that is parked up to watch the America's Cup when it might be coming from a super yacht berth or another place in the Hauraki Gulf where it is already paying the proposed berthage fees. Can you just take us through that, because there was a little bit of misinformation, and it's just because the media didn't have the opportunity to probably ask the right office.
You're correct in what you say, Councillor. This fee wasn't aimed at the America's Cup, it was aimed at these large vessels in general. With the America's Cup courses being so close to shore, I'm not expecting there to be much room available for these large super yachts to anchor and watch the Cup races. So whilst they'll be in town, they won't be anchored around the perimeter of the course because it's too close to shore. But if one or two did, then they wouldn't be picked up in this fee.
Okay. The second part to that is it does cover cargo ships that might be moored in the Hauraki Gulf, and occasionally we get them waiting because there might be a constraint at the port, and it's invariably a very short period that they're in waiting in the stream north of Rangitoto Light. But I've been made aware that there are instances where cargo ships are not permitted to enter even if there is berthage at the Port of Auckland, and there was an instance earlier this year where the stink bugs, going back to stink bugs, were identified, I think, on a car carrier, and a number of ships banked up. Now, those ships and their owners, they're not responsible in a way, they just have to join the queue. So if they join the queue, which is created by maybe only one vessel, it would be, in my view, maybe inappropriate that they are charged a $23 per metre over 40 metre charge for mooring in the Gulf, waiting for a problem to be sorted. How do you approach that?
Yep, again, I totally agree. We're practical sailors in the Harbour Master's office, and so if there is a practical reason why something's happening, we'll be more than willing to discuss it. And in such an instance, we wouldn't look to charge them. But if a shipping company decides to send their ship here and anchor in the Gulf and take its engines to bits and repair it through convenience, then we would be looking at charge them.
Okay, that's great. That question was asked on behalf of Ports of Auckland, as you probably guessed. The third one is probably Andrew. One of the unaddressed areas of the Inventory Plan was the wider discussion about coastal area charging. So we've got private jetties occupying public seabed, compromising public waterway, and then in some instances they become helipads, e.g. Herne Bay. Is that discussion about coastal area charging something that has to be subject to a 10-year budget, more fully consultative procedure rather than annual budget one?
Yeah, so that's we can't rate the seabed, but I think we can rate the assets that might be over it and attached to the land. But if you're looking at a fees and charges sense, we would have to look at our bylaws to see if there was some mechanism or appropriate mechanism there that would allow us to do anything like that. I'm not sure that off the cuff that there is, but it's something that we could explore to see to what extent there will be merit in that, if you wished.
So I gather that there's actually quite a bit of body of work to be done. It's not an annual plan.
In terms of, there'll be certain consultation requirements that the council must meet if it was going to introduce a charge. I'm not familiar with what mechanism we'd be using to charge that, but there may be requirements. Well, there'd definitely be consultation requirements. It would not necessarily have to be part of an LTP, but if it was significant enough, you might want to include it in that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
It sounds like a little bit you're the turkey inviting himself to Thanksgiving, given you have a jetty, I believe, Councillor David. Yeah. Councillor Wayne Walker.
Well, just a follow-on question from Councillor Darby around the charges for the foreign vessels. You've mentioned the other locations in New Zealand where there are charges, but are these sorts of charges common practice in overseas ports?
Depends on where in the world you go.
Sure.
But
World's a big place, I understand.
Certainly cruise ships expect to pay their way wherever they go in the world. And as the cruise market changes, cruise ships are going further and further off the beaten path. So regular cruisers have already been to Auckland, and now they're looking to places like Waiheke, Great Barrier, Kowau. And so they're moving away from the traditional ports and moving more towards anchorages, and we're not benefiting from any contribution for them.
Interesting. Goes to things like dolphins. Okay. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
All right. Okay. Now we've got the former trial area, and we've just got recommend at the governing body at the bottom there. So, Councillor Darby, you happy to move?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. I'll second. So, councillors, put the recommendations. All those in favour?
Aye.
Okay. So, right. We're now on to the last item, and we'll ask. Thank you, guys. Thank you. And the guys, I assume gender neutral, by the way. Yep, Alistair and Francis, welcome. And Matthew will just say a little bit of an introduction here. We'll wait for Francis to come. Right, Andrew.